For the third time this season, it's Duquesne and it's Dayton. But this third time, it's going to be under the bright lights of Barclay Center in Brooklyn, New York for the A10 quarterfinals. Welcome to the Duquesne Sports Pregame Show. I'm Jack Morgan. Alongside me, Dylan Pfister. Glad to be here for this one to break it down for you. It's going to be a good one. Duquesne comes into this one having won their game last night against St. Louis in what really seemed like a wire-to-wire win for Duquesne. They did a lot of things right in that pregame show, and we talked about it. We said that they needed to get out to a quick start. They certainly did that against St. Louis.
Yeah, Jack, I mean, if that pregame show was the script, they followed the script too.
They did.
It was definitely a team effort. Mahorcic had 8 points, and then DeMichael had 7 points as well. Played very physical in the paint. Everybody had a lot of energy. Great team effort, but we talked mainly about Day Grant and Jimmy Clark in that pregame show, and they had themselves a day. Jimmy Clark with 20 points, Day Grant with 17. It looked like they were dropping threes left and right.
I mean, absolutely. The effort was there, too. I mean, I think mostly the effort was there. Primarily, the best thing about that game was the effort was there. And they were able to get out to an early start. And when you're going to go up and now we're going to shift towards, a team like Dayton, you need to also get out to a fast start. And they did that the second time around when they played Dayton. Duquesne was able to get out to a fast start. It helped them stay in the game for as long as they did. But then that second half, they kind of faltered. But focusing on that fast starts, how important is it for Duquesne?
Yeah, Jack, it's definitely important. And in that first game against Dayton, they did have that fast start. I believe they held Dayton to a 17% field goal or 3-point percentage in the first half. That went up to 71 for Dayton in the second half. Now, that's the fall off that Duquesne can't see in this game. Now, you talked about that second game, and they actually fared very well against the Flyers in that game. They actually outshot them from the field. Now, the only problem with the Dukes in that game, why they actually ended up losing by 16 points in such a tightly close contested game statistically, was because they only drew 3 free throws all game, where on the other side, the Flyers went 16 from 23 from the line. So that tells me that they weren't physical enough. They didn't bring that energy, but we saw it from them against St. Louis, and I think we will see it against the Flyers.
I mean, absolutely. And Dayton, the last time in that game, they just turned it on with about, he got under that 10-minute mark in the second half, and it just felt like just the floodgates opened. They went up 58 to once Deron Holmes put them in front 58 to 57. Duquesne only scored 2 more points the rest of the way. And Dayton can be good on defense. And you saw that. Now, obviously, Duquesne is going to, what Keith Dambrot's going to say is, we didn't hit our shots and we didn't play as well, but Dayton deserves some credit.
They definitely
for that defensive performance.
They definitely do. And Duquesne, they were hitting their shots, but they definitely do. You mentioned that defense. Dayton's, I believe they're first in the A10. Yeah, first in the A10 in the scoring margin. So we can talk about their offense and Deron Holmes putting up 33 points on the Dukes all day, but that defense is dang good.
Absolutely. And Duquesne, they're ready for the challenge, but don't take that from us. After the game, Jimmy Clark, Dave Dixon, and Day Grant did speak on this and what that 21st win meant to them, and basically saying they're ready for this challenge against Dayton and going forward in this tournament.
For any of you guys, your thoughts on playing Dayton for a third time?
Start with David.
I'm ready. That's all I got to say.
We'll go to Jimmy.
Locked in.
Day.
I think we excited, man. I think we're excited. We're ready for the challenge. And we don't think nobody really want to play us, to be honest with you. But we ready for our challenge.
So you heard it there. Duquesne, clearly they are ready to go. Where does it start for Duquesne on offense?
Well, I think it can definitely always easily start with those two guys. They've played decently well against them. Day Grant with 14 in his first, and I believe he had less than 10 in the second, but Jimmy had 12 in the first game against Dayton, 14 in the second. Now, those are both below their game averages, but, they're solid numbers, and I think they'll show up again. But maybe that's not what this team needs. They don't need that star power to win this big game. They need energy, and that's why I'm looking at a guy like Kareem Rozier. When you're in this position in the moment, it's not always about the skill. It's about the emotion and having the guys that are going to carry the team to a good spot in that game, not to a spot where emotions are flying high and we're taking shots we don't need to take. Like I said, it doesn't always come down to skill. And there's guys on a team that maybe don't play 30 minutes, come in for 20, like Kareem Rozier, and he's been struggling with an injury, hasn't been playing a ton. But in a big moment, that's a guy that you want on the court, and that's the guy that you want to be loud, and that's the guy that I think can turn the game around in any moment.
He had some pretty good minutes in the game against St. Louis. I mean, he came in, and while he only had 2 points. You can feel the energy. You can feel the energy he brings for this team. And obviously dealing with that injury with his leg, I mean, that's obviously it's not ideal when you're dealing with a lower body injury, but that's just a reality of the situation. And, it was said that Kareem Rozier expects to play. I'm sure he expects to play against Dayton and expects to play at a high level like he's done all year for this team, especially. I mean, in that non-conference part of the schedule, Kareem Rozier is fantastic. He has slipped off a little bit and slipped out of that rotation, which is interesting, but also that's due to the resurgence of guys like Jake DeMichael, even Matus Saransky, and Jakob Netches. I mean, they've all been fantastic for the Dukes, and they got, they didn't get as many minutes, but they've been getting in there. Duquesne runs very deep. I mean, they ran with an 11-man rotation. Not many teams do that in the A10, let alone in all of college basketball. What are the benefits to running such a deep rotation like that? I mean, a lot of guys.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, Jack. I mean, unfortunately, that when we watch these young guys step into their game and become these stars, you're going to watch a few guys lose some playing time. And unfortunately, that has happened with Kareem Rozier. Despite what he brings to this team, he's lost a few minutes. But it is still cool to watch him come in and hit some threes. I think that is a part of his game that's improved. I think his shooting from range has gotten a little bit better. It's not what it used to be. He doesn't really excel driving inside anymore as much, but he's still a successful facilitator inside. But you're right, it's been good for them to find that rotation. And you and I, Jack, were talking about it while we were watching. It's been fun to watch them perfect that lineup that we like to see.
Yeah.
And right now it seems to consist of Day Grant, Jimmy Clark, Dave Dixon, Jake DeMichael, and then honestly a rotation if you want to put Fousseyni Drama in there, if you want to throw Kareem in there. There are options. It depends on, like you say a lot of the time, the opponent. Throw Mahorcic in there depending on what kind of center the other team is running.
Yeah.
There's a lot of benefits.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I wanted to pivot towards that Mahorcic versus Holmes angle, where we've seen them battle twice this year. And honestly, watching them in the paint is must-see TV. I mean, they've had some battles. Mahorcic looked pretty good today. He only got 11 minutes. Dixon took the remaining 25 away from him at that center position. He got 8 points in this one, and he was 4 for 4 from the field, very efficient. He had 4 rebounds. I mean, that's got to be good momentum for Mahorcic going into a game where he knows he's going to be a big focal point for this team defensively.
Yeah, that's a great point to mention, Jack, and especially because I had previously talked about how the Dukes pretty much lost that last game against the Flyers because they only had the 3 free throws. And so what do you need? You need a big man down low who's going to draw the fouls and make his shots, and I think that's what Mahorcic can be for the Dukes in this game.
He's going to have to be, I think. I think Mahorcic is going to have to play a big role in this one, and he did in the very beginning of the second game they played. And that was part in why Duquesne was able to surge out front, because they had Mahorcic locking down Holmes inside. But we're going to shift to Holmes because it has been now a little less than 10 minutes. We haven't talked about Deron Holmes exclusively. We're going to change that now because Deron Holmes is the A10 player of the year. I mean, he's fantastic. Good Lord. He's good at what he does.
Yeah, we got to talk about Deron Holmes. Leads the A10 in scoring in 2 games against the Dukes. He's put up 50, I believe it's 57 points from him. It's not a good look from us.
Yeah, not good.
But you know what? It doesn't take away that much because he is a fantastic player. And of course, if the Flyers win this game, it's going to be the Flyers. It's going to be
The Dukes, rather. If the Dukes
the Dukes
win this game.
If the Dukes win this game, it's going to be because they shut him down.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ron Holmes averaging 20 points per game this year. You don't see that often. There's not many. You see that, okay, you might see that in the NBA, but college is such a different pace, a different type of game than the NBA. You don't see many players average 20 points a game. Ron Holmes does that, and it's not just him that puts up the production offensively. You got guys like Nate Santos and Kobe Brea, two guys who are really fantastic.
Yeah, and that's why I had Nate Santos as my player to watch for this game. The last game against VCU, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 4 of 6 from the three-point line. He does it all around the court. And, yeah, just like Deron Holmes, he's not just a shooter. He had 12 rebounds in the first game against the Dukes. He had 11 rebounds in the second, 3 blocks. I mean, he's just a force no matter where you are, what kind of attack you're trying to formulate. He's going to be dominant out there.
Santos really impressed me, at least when I watch him in some non-conference games. That was the first time I really saw him. I'm like, this guy's good. This guy can play, and he certainly can. Now, before I get to my player to watch, I do want to point something out. Javon Bennett hasn't played since March 1st, the game against Loyola Chicago, in which, Dayton lost. But that's beside the point. They expect him to play. Anthony Grant said they're hopeful that he will play. There's been reports going out there that they expect him to play in the A-10 tournament, meaning today. And against Duquesne, in Duquesne, when they played at the Coop, he put up 9 points. He had 6 assists as well. The second time they played, and this was at home, he had 6 points, 4 assists as well. But you just see the way he plays out on the court. He's a very big part of this team. And him not playing this game would be a big loss. But luckily for the Flyers, it looks like he will be a go tomorrow. But he'll be banged up. And for Duquesne, you take all the breaks you can get. If a guy broke his thumb, like a guy like Javon Bennett broke his thumb, he's still playing, he might not be the same. And Duquesne is, all the better for that. But it's important to point out because if Javon Bennett can't really get things going, it's going to have to be a guy like Kobe Brea, to maybe pick up the slack. And Brea had a fantastic game his last time out against a fantastic last 2 games. He put up 21 points against SLU in a 100-83 win. Then he puts up 18 in a game against VCU the last time out. And watching that game, he was fantastic. Now, Brea's good, but the guy you really have to look out for the most on this team is Deron Holmes. Simply put, Deron Holmes is the best player in the A-10. And for Duquesne to stop him, we talked about this for a good part of the show now. Dusan Mahorcic, he's going to have to play. He's going to have to play well to stop Holmes in the paint. But if Holmes can get it going, it's adios, sayonara to Duquesne's season. I mean, he's fantastic. He's shown that he can play well against Duquesne twice now. Third time might be the charm. Maybe he'll put up 40 this time. Who knows? He's capable of it. He's a very good player. Duquesne's going to need to stop him. Now, as for Duquesne, I'm going to switch to them. Who's your player to watch, Dylan?
Well, it's a little bit of a wild card. I mean, we've talked about Mahorcic this whole time, but I'm going to talk about Dave Dixon. I mean, just consistency is what we've seen from him all season, and Duquesne has so many stars that we talk about every day we're in here. But one of the guys that is consistently putting up similar numbers every single game, maybe not the flashiest guy with the biggest numbers, but is consistently always there, is the rock for this team, is David Dixon. And they need a rock at this moment. They need that cornerstone of the paint. And that's honestly, Mahorcic, if Mahorcic is going to go to war, he needs somebody to help him. He needs somebody else to also be drawing some fouls.
He can't go to war for 40 minutes.
Exactly. And that's what they didn't have last time out against Dayton. they can't have one guy drawing the fouls. It's got to be a team effort. They need physicality all around, and that's why I'm pointing on Dave Dixon to throw his body around, draw some fouls, sink those free throws, and just gain any little margin that they can on Dayton.
I'm going to go with Jimmy Clark as my player to watch, and I think really basketball, some will tell you, and in baseball, some will tell you, all right, momentum's a myth. That's true there. In basketball, I am 1,000% convinced that momentum is a real thing. Jimmy Clark is playing some fantastic basketball right now. He had that game against George Washington in which he put up 22. He scored 1,000. He scored 1,000 points on the button by hitting those free throws. I mean, that's fair. He was clutch in that GW game. I thought it was important to point out. He's a part of the 1,000-point club, and he did it in such grand style. Goes on to play St. Louis, puts up 20 points. He was shooting 57% from three and over 46% from the field. He's got to show up the free throws. He's got to be better from the line. But I think that if he can, make shots from the line, if he can get to the line, if he can get into the paint on that dribble drive penetration, maybe kick it out, he's going to have to kickstart this offense, him and Day Grant, I think. But I think Jimmy Clark, most especially, he's been on a tear. He had 22 against LaSalle a couple weeks back. I mean, he's been playing great basketball. I think that he's going to be a key component to Duquesne's success tonight.
Yeah, just the way we've watched Jimmy Clark develop, not only as a shooter but as a passer, it's been incredible to watch. He'll definitely be a big factor.
Well, then you go back to his days of ECU. I mean, he was a defense-first guy. And I remember one time in one press conference, Coach Dambrot was talking about how he came in here, he couldn't shoot the three at all. You just see him, St. Louis, I felt like I turned around and he was drilling a shot from three. I'm like, what is going on? It's a hell of a transformation over the past few years from Jimmy Clark, and really been something else to watch, like you said. All right, we're going to move into our game predictions for this one. It's going to be an interesting one. The third time around, does Duquesne get that one win that matters?
I do not think that the Dukes are going to get it done against Dayton. I think it's going to be a great game. I think Duquesne is going to have a better finish out this time around than they did last season. I think they're going to make Duquesne. I think the Dukes are going to make Duquesne proud. They're going to fight till the end, but I think Dayton is going to win it 80-75.
Listen, we've had fun doing this all year. And if it is the last time, it's been great. And I think it will be the last time. Listen, if they win, trust me, we're back here covering the semis. But if not, it's so tough to beat a team like Dayton. For you to beat Dayton, you have to play darn near a perfect game. The teams that have beat Dayton in the A-10, quite frankly, have played perfect games. They pitch perfect games offensively, defensively, and everything in between. That's a tough ask, especially for a team that just played the night before. Dayton comes in with almost a full week of rest at this one because they played on Friday. They're a day short of full rest. That is a tough ask. I think Duquesne fights, though. I think they get out to a good start. I think this game goes down to the wire, but I think Duquesne drops it by 5. But I think they put up an effort that is commendable and that the student body and alumni can be proud of. And if they do lose, it'd be interesting to see if it's Keith Dambrot's last game. If it is, it's a heck of a career. We'll see what happens, though. 7:30 tip. Make sure you can catch it on USA Network. Thank you so much for watching the Duquesne Sports Pregame Show. I've been your host, Jack Morgan. For Dylan Fitzer, we're saying so long. Enjoy the game, everyone.